The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policies or positions of any organization or entity. The content is for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be considered professional advice. Listeners are encouraged to do their own research or consult a qualified professional regarding the topics discussed. By engaging with this podcast and related social media content, you acknowledge and agree to this disclaimer.
Great Goddess Morgan, Raven Queen, give us guidance today and protect us from any harm sent our way. Great Queen Morgan, to whom ravens and crows are sacred, Goddess of magic, prophecy, and war, give us sight and knowledge for the path we walk today. So mote it be. Enter, friends, for there are no strangers at the hearth of the Coven of Wing and Fang. Today we are going to talk about divination, specifically tarot. But before we dive in, how are you doing, Foxfire, and how's your New Year going?
Oh my God, it's a freaking new year. I'm just saying.
Uh-huh.
This whole thing of New Year, New Me is, like I like to say, fudge that. It's New Year, same me, no matter what I do. It's mainly just, it's trying to live every day and trying to make sure everything's, as good as possible.
Yeah, I feel exactly the same way.
Whew, I mean, oh gosh.
It's the same me as last year, just a new digit that I have to remember to write down if I'm writing things.
Oh my gosh, yes. And after, this year with the holidays, it didn't feel like much of a holiday. It sped on by. And I really think it's because Thanksgiving was at the end of the month this year in November, and it just bam, 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 and hit.
It was just like one thing after another. Yeah, I feel that.
So I do want to say really quick, I want to say how much me and my husband appreciated the gifts that you sent us. I wear the Obsidian Fox on a regular basis, and we use the affirmation cards every morning before we go to work, just to kind of give us a little oomph before we get going. So we really appreciated everything. He also appreciated I think it was cornelian necklace that you got him. He really appreciated that, and he even asked me, like, how do I use this? I said, however you want. I said, you wear it, or you can put it on, or you can hang it in your car and just look at it when you have a bad day. I said, it's there for you to do what you need. So we really do appreciate it. We were not expecting anything like that. I thought it was going to be a Christmas card, and then it says package, and I'm like, what is this? And yeah, it was, happy Yule to everybody.
Y'all had a real busy end of your year there, so you deserved a little extra love. And I'm not kidding when I say the little deck list jumped off at me, so had to go for y'all.
Yeah, you said quite a few things jumped off the shelf at you, and I'm like, I know that feeling. All right, so like you said, we're going to be talking about divination today, specifically speaking about tarot cards. The great thing about tarot cards is there's like a million different decks that can suit anybody's needs nowadays. Even then, people sometimes think of oracle cards as the same as tarot cards.
They're not. They're very different.
Right. And you even said you found a TikTok video, and it kills me that we can't find it so we can give this person the recognition they deserve. They differentiated how oracle cards were versus how tarot cards were. Where I think you said like oracle cards were like for a specific question, but tarot cards are kind of for a specific situation or something like that.
Yeah, it's like if you said, oh, will this interview do well? Will I do well at this interview? You could use an oracle card because they're more of like a fixed meaning. But if you're like, what will the response from this new job I applied to be, and what will the answer be? That's more of like an in-depth question. So tarot cards work better for that because they have a lot more detail and room for interpretation. So they give you a more in-depth answer.
And
she
like I
worded
said,
it so well. I just can't remember how she said it.
Right. I kind of wish we could have found her so we could at least be like, hey, go check this person out. She's amazing. But unfortunately, obviously, it was meant to show up and then disappear. So
if I ever find her again, I'm going to be like, there she was. That was it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So I think the first thing I want us to talk about really is just kind of our experience using tarot cards. Hopefully you don't mind if I go first, because I've recently did a reading for somebody, and it kind of makes me want to jump off and go ahead and talk about it. It's moving me to talk about it. So I've had this one deck of cards since I was about 19 years old. It is the Dragon deck. I don't remember what brand or who it was made by or whatever. I've just had this deck forever and a day. It's always kind of served me well. It's always done a good job. I have a friend of mine who used them by accident. Not saying it's a no-no, but it's typically once you get used to using your own card set, you should really stick to your only you being the person dealing with it, because it could mesh the energy.
Yeah.
However, because he and I both had a really strong devotion to dragons at the time, he was able to get an accurate reading off this deck, which goes to show with mythical creatures or creatures that are no longer seen on this plane of existence, you can, they appreciate those who, I don't want to say worship, but still idolize and look up to them in some way. So yeah, I've had this deck for freaking ever. Had a friend come over recently and we were just sitting, and I said, I've been wanting to do a reading for you for a while because I feel like you need some insight in your life. You've been going through some things, and I think it would help you discover why you're going through what you're going through and kind of get to where you need to be. So, of course, I do a Celtic Cross, which is something we'll talk about today. And the first 4 cards, or wait, hold on. 6 cards, excuse me. The first 6 cards were very disheartening when I first started reading it, because in my mind, for some odd reason, after as long as I've had this deck and as long as I've been doing everything, I've always thought of it as telling the future. And it's really not telling the future, it's more telling a story and trying to help you understand the story better and what you can do to get over this portion of the story. So I felt like it was very dark. It was very not, dark's not a good word. It was just it was hurt. There was a lot of pain in the cards. There was a lot of swords on a lot of the things. And there were a couple other cards it showed that something negative had happened and in the situation. So after reading those, and I kind of looked at them, and I did the reading, and I just kind of looked at them. I said, this doesn't make sense. I said, because I thought this was, because you asked about relationships moving forward. And me and him talked for a second, and things started clicking for me as I realized, oh no, this is not your story of what you need to do to move on. This is what happened. Like the first 6 cards are, this is what happened. This is how you got hurt. And it was a really big not deal, but it was a really big eye opener, because I can't go into detail because my friend told me that I can share the story but not give the details. And I said, okay, that's fine.
Oh, yeah. That makes sense.
It was private. A lot of the stuff that happened was very private. I will say that he did have a lot of major arcana and a lot of air, air is typically sword is typically double-edged. It's good and bad. It's a lot of mental strife, and preparedness is a lot of what it's for. So it's meant to hurt, but it's meant to help at the same time, is the best way I can explain it. So after all that, then the last 4 cards to the side are basically what they can do to better themselves. And the first card was, and I'm going to share this, I will share this part because it makes sense to share. The first card that I had on the 4 on the side, the first card was I keep saying the first card over and over again. I'm so sorry. The first card was the Magician reversed. And typically the Magician represents power and strength. And, because you're young and you've got all this ability. And because of the situations that happened, he feels defeated, is the best way that I could put it. And in order for him to overcome that and kind of get his house straight, next was the Hermit. And that's a lot of soul searching and figuring out who, like working through it. And ultimately, in the end, for them to really get through all this, they're going to have to do that work and actually, realize that not all people are good out there. I feel, and literally after the reading, me and him sat on the couch and hugged and cried for probably about a good 2 or 3 minutes, because it was a painful experience. Well, not painful. It was just drudging up old memories that hurt. So in the end, as I was hugging him, I had completely forgot to tell, because of course I pray to Freya when I do any kind of divination. I completely forgot to tell Freya, thank you so much for your help. You are no longer needed. Not quite in those words, but something similar to that. And as I was actually hugging them for a second, I actually saw maternal arms holding us, and I felt a peace that I recognized as Freya. So she was holding me and him both to help
She was
him get.
there.
She was there, and it was
That's amazing.
unintentional. She was there because I hadn't asked her to dismiss yet. So, but she was needed, I think. And when I said that, and I actually when I realized it, and I said, thank you so much. We appreciate your guidance during this time. So hopefully, to my friend, he as they listen to this podcast, just know I am your friend. I will be here for you, and I will help you through your journey because that is kind of what I'm here for. Interesting thing is, in the end of all of this, I actually had the urge to pull another card, and I don't know why. That's one of the things that get me when doing stuff like this. Um, I
Sometimes
pulled a
it just
card,
happens.
and it was justice, and justice is actually led by Libra, or is representative of Libra, and I'm a Libra, so that tells me that I have some kind of, or I feel like that means I have some kind of part to play in helping through his journey to get better. Um, and then, and I'm here for it. So again, like I said, I'm here to be his friend and help him through everything.
That's amazing.
Yeah, like those are the kind of stories where it's like you realize you're in a person's life for a reason to help them through the rough times,
Yeah,
and you want to stand by them no matter what the situation is. All right,
that's
no more.
amazing.
Okay, enough crying. So, Raven, what about you working with tarot cards? Do you have anything in particular that you've ever worked with that kind of like jumped out or like stood out to you while working with it?
I haven't had anything recently that's quite as poignant as what you just shared, but for me, working with tarot cards, it's really a way to connect with my spirit guides, with my deities, and let them pass on any messages or information or like commentary about my current life because uh, I I do work with Anubis and Hel, a Hel from the Norse pantheon. And they are very much like they're not gonna let you hide. You know what I mean? So if you're trying not to look at an aspect of yourself or not look at an aspect of a situation, like even subconsciously, they drag that right up to the front. So it's
It's
just a
like I,
really, yeah.
it's kind of like I told a friend of mine recently. Sometimes deities have jokes, like when you go to pull a
Mm-hmm.
tarot card or something,
Mm-hmm.
and you're just
Oh,
like,
they do.
are you serious? Like, is this really your message to me right now? And it's always kind of funny.
Oh yeah. No, it is. It can be pretty funny, but it can also be like, dang, you didn't have to go that hard. Sheesh.
Right.
But yeah, it's just for me, it's a way of connecting, and a lot of the time I look at it. Some people, like the whole history of it being used for fortune telling and all that. I don't feel like it's exactly fortune telling. Like you said, it's more of like a way to connect and look at a situation. And to me, it kind of pulls out more out of your intuition so you know more about a situation than you think you know. And through using the tarot cards, because there's so many different meanings and so many different things, yeah, it's helped along to pull the right cards to help you get the information, but it's just helping you connect and get that.
Right. Because it's a lot of, and it's like I've said, knowing that I'm intuitive, for me, reading the cards and look, like, I still look at the book because honestly, there's just at the minimum, you've got 56 minor arcana and then you've got the, what, 20 plus major
22.
arcana.
Yeah, it's
Like, that's
usually
a lot of
22.
information to try to remember.
And each of the cards has a multitude of different meanings if it's upright, if it's reversed. So there's just so much. And if you use different decks, sometimes they tweak the meanings or the names a little bit.
Right. And so that's kind of what you run into. So even the people who are like very well versed in how to use these, I've
Hmm.
asked them like, "How do you do that?" And they're like, "Oh, I just took out a notebook and I would do a draw a day. I would do a card a day and write down what it meant. And then if I got it multiple times, I would try to remember what that card meant." And I'm like, that's a lot of work, not in a bad way, but like if I was going
That's
to do this
dedication.
professionally, right? It's a dedication. It's a study of the
Yeah.
cards. And I think that's what people don't realize when they go to deal with tarot readers and tarot cards and stuff like that. If you give the tarot reader your question or your concern, you can read it fairly it can be read fairly easy. But if you decide not to share the question, it gets kind of like what's going on here? Like, this doesn't make sense kind of thing to the tarot reader because or to the reader because I had to ask my friend. I'm like, all right, I'm going to ask because I'm confused. What did you ask about? And they told me, and I said, okay, this makes sense now. Like, I can see what you're
Mm,
talking about now. So once I actually started working through it and realizing, it's like I said, it was a story. It wasn't actually telling the future. And the insight was actually giving advice as to how to better themselves and make themselves a stronger person once again and get back to where they were, which I know they'll get there. It's just going to take time. Um,
yeah.
so I think the next thing to really kind of talk about is how there's different decks for different people.
Yeah.
One of the things it's like I've had my dragon deck forever because I was in love with dragons when I was younger. Even now, there are decks like the Disney villain deck, the Hocus Pocus
Hmm.
deck. I have
There's
the
even like
Wildwood.
video game decks too.
Right, like they make a deck for basically everything nowadays,
Literally.
and it's nothing wrong with that because it could be just your aesthetic, really. Um,
Hmm.
like I have the Wildwood Tarot. I really like that one.
Oh, that's beautiful.
It is. It's such beautiful Norse and Celtic work on on those cards, and I
Hmm.
like working with them sometimes. But again, my trusty steeds are the dragon deck that I use. The probably most uh popular is the I can't think of its name. It's the Wind Witch deck or something like that.
That sounds familiar. I'm not sure. There's so many that I can't remember all of them.
It's the Rider Waite tarot deck. That is the most popular
Okay.
and most well published and most well known. I had to look it
Yeah.
up myself and find out because I was like, wait, I should know this. That is one of the most popular ones that's where you see people starting off and getting used to using them the most.
Yeah,
Um,
because that's like the simplest illustrations, like the most straightforward from what people have said, like for learning.
right. And that's kind of what you have to do for me. You know, all these or the boxes of cards that you get, they always come with a book to tell you how the cards read and how you should work them and how it's supposed to do.
Hmm.
um so for me it's just find a deck that speaks to you. You can be one of these people that like me and Raven where we probably have about 20 different decks just because you
Oh,
never I mean, and there's a mix between oracle and tarot cards, but you have all these different decks to kind of play with just because there may be one deck that speaks louder in a certain situation than another for some odd reason that you just don't understand. So it's
right.
really up to the diviner, is a good way to put it. It's really up to the diviner as to how they want to use these cards on a regular basis.
Yeah. No, I will admit I have an issue whenever we said we met playing D&D on the last episode.
Uh huh.
Hadn't I have an issue with being a dice goblin. I have an issue with being a tarot slash oracle deck goblin. I have a very decent collection, and like you said, it's very true that you have different decks that just seem to work better for different readings. I've had a deck where I've picked one that I'm like, oh, I like using, say, the Crow Tarot deck. That's one
Hmm.
of my favorites. But when I do a reading for my mom or my sister, for some reason that deck is not the best one to use for them, so I end up pulling one of the other decks.
Got you.
But yeah, it's interesting.
So, with us talking about all the decks that we use, how do you prepare your space for a tarot reading? I think everybody probably will do it around about the same. I know myself, I've gotten into the habit now of actually smoking my cards or smudging my cards to clarify them before use. I've actually started using Palo Santo because it smells really good. And usually I just fan them out, smudge them to cleanse them because if they sit for a while, they get kind of stagnant, stale energy.
Yeah.
Um, and then myself, I will, after I'm done, I'll leave the Palo Santo burning in my dish and I'll take a minute and pray to, like I said, typically Freya, to, guide me and give me the intuition that I need. Because again, Freya being the goddess of divination or of satyr magic, which is divination, it kind of helps to have her as my guide. Now, if one of my guides want to jump in, I'm sure they will and guide me as needed. But for the most part, that's usually what I do. Just kind of center myself and clear it. I then let the person who I'm doing the reading on, I let them shuffle and cut the deck because it's their question that they have, and I even tell them keep your question in mind, shuffle the deck, cut it however many times you want to cut it, and then hand it back to me, and we'll work from there.
It's really a good way of doing it if you're doing a reading for somebody else, honestly, because it allows their energy to touch the deck and start attuning it to them. Usually for me, I'll do so my sister growing up, she was asthmatic. So I don't use smoke a lot. So what I'll do
Mm-hmm.
is I actually use a one of those singing bowls and do like a sound cleanse. And then I like to do like a grounding where I just like reconnect my energy down to the earth, kind of make sure I'm not stagnant, let the cards get a cleansing. Sometimes I will say, like, if it feels like there's a really stagnant energy around the deck or the person that I'm going to be reading for, I will do like an incense cleanse. Like you were talking about with, but that's typically like my thing. I'll do the sound cleanse, grounding, try and focus in on the person I'm doing the reading for. I actually do have like a tarot shop that I do readings through, so I have them give me like their first, last name, month and day of their birth, and like that's how I like focus in on that person, and then I'll focus in on the question because I don't usually have the person like near me when I'm doing the reading for them. But that's usually how I get ready.
So yeah, round about the same way for both of us.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm sure there's somebody else who has a different way completely, but we haven't met them yet.
Right. So it's like we've said in the first episode, you're going to do things your way and it's completely okay. There are certain ways that you should probably do things to make sure that you stay safe. So
Yeah.
so just keep that in mind. Now that we've talked about how to prepare, let's talk about the
Mm.
big elephant in the room before the cards is how to decide what spread to use or what spreads are
Oh,
commonly used. I've got two small ones, and then Raven has the big one with the Celtic cross, which is one of the most common that have been seen. Um,
yeah.
so for me, single pools for me are basically exactly what it sounds like. It's you shuffle the deck, you pull one card out, and there it is, and that's your answer. You can either pull it off the top, or you can fan them out and pull randomly from somewhere within the deck. It's great if you need a quick answer to a simple question. I don't say simple, but like let's say you just want guidance or something, you can just shuffle it, spread it out, pull the card, and look at the meaning and figure and see how it pertains to your situation.
So what kind of question would you usually answer with a single poll? Just like give them an example for people who might just be new to it.
I think there was one time, it was a long time ago that I've done a single pull. I have not done single pulls in forever. When I pulled the single, and for me, it was kind of, I think it was just looking for guidance for like what I should do with my life. Don't even remember what the card is because it was like back in high school, which was in the way away time for me. And I don't remember what the card was, but I just was like, what should I, how should I proceed in life? Or what should be my next step in life? And that was kind of the question I asked, and I got an answer through that simple from that.
That makes
So
sense.
that's
I
kind of
feel
like I said, it's
like
something like if you, it's like a good insight, like what should I focus on about me for the day? Because I have a coworker who she'll do a reading on herself daily. I don't know if she does a 3 card or a single card, but it's mainly
oh,
to give insight for the day.
okay.
That
I can see that.
um
That's a good way of doing that.
yeah. And then another one is the 3 card spread, which I also call the past, present, future. The one thing I want to remind people about when doing past, present, and future. Past does not mean years ago. Past is not defined as just years ago. It could be something that happened last week. It could be something that happened yesterday, or it could be something that happened in your childhood. Present is the now, so it's kind of what's like the energy circling around you at that point in time. And then future could be anywhere. Like I said, it could be the next day, it could be 10 years from now, it could be in a month. You just never really know with that kind of reading. I think it really would depend on your question. Like, why, like, let's say your question is, why do I have such a problem? Or what could be an outcome for or this is really hard to think of a question that goes with the past, present, future.
I always look at those ones. It's not necessarily like the question itself being like, oh, this part of the question is past, this is present, this is future. It's like asking about a situation. And for me, how I interpret it is the Past is, okay, well, this is how the situation came about, or things that in your past are causing the current situation. The
Hmm.
present is, this is the situation, and you in the middle of it. And then the future is, this is the possible outcome, depending on how you handle it. Or if you want a specific future, this is how you would go about it. That's how I always interpreted it.
And that's probably a good way to actually explain that better than what I was trying to
No,
do.
you're good.
But it's like I said, it's but it kind of does line up a little bit with what I said, where when you say past, present, future, you're not saying like distant past, right now, present,
Mhm.
and distant future. It's kind of fluid and malleable. It can change a little bit.
It's very much, like the genie thing, like be careful what you ask,
Yeah,
because the future could be like you were saying, it could be like 2 minutes from now, it could be several days from now, could be years.
right,
So
right,
yeah.
right, right. So those two are kind of small and simple. They're really quick, especially if you're just something that you just need insight and guidance on for like something small term. But Celtic Cross is a whole different beast of another color, and
Yeah.
I'm
I
going to let you take that.
I'll just say I prefer like 3 card pulls. I like those. Those are good. Celtic Crosses for me it's a lot because it is a 10 card pull essentially. Sometimes like you get drawn to draw an extra card like you said earlier about the reading you did, but majority of the time it's the 10 cards, and this one is like really for a complex situation in my opinion, because you have like the present is the first card I think, and then you go into the problem, how the problem came about, the future. So for me, this one is like if you want a really in depth answer to whichever question you're asking, this is the one to go into. If you're ready to get hurt by it calling you out, this is the one to go to.
You're not wrong.
Um, yeah, I'm like every time I've done this, maybe this is why I'm not a fan of this spread myself, is every time that I've had a Celtic Cross reading for me, it's been really like spot on, like to the point of being like, ow, okay, fine. But yeah, this one is the very much in depth. It will go into where you are in regards to your question or the situation that you're looking at, your conscious mind, your unconscious mind. It's going to look at every aspect of you, what you're doing to encourage or affect the situation, what other people around you are doing. It'll like do a deep dive into your psyche of like how you're feeling about the situation, which for me is usually where it hurts because I try and ignore things when I'm having a bad situation. I try and just be like, oh, I don't feel that. I do, and it'll call me out on it. And then, of course, like it just gives you like the hey, this is the outcome. If you do what you need to do and you put in that work, like you were saying for your friend, this is the outcome you'll get.
Right. And it's like like that outcome specifically did speak to like there's if something looks like it's lucky, it's not what you need to do. Like it's you
Hmm.
need to do the work. And I was
Yeah,
very and I even gave them like you've got to do the work. It's not going to be easy and I just want but I will let you know that I'll be here through this journey for you.
yeah.
Um
Mhm.
because there
It's
will be because with that, like I said, with me having pulled Justice, which is, a
mhm.
Libra related card, I'm like, okay, I have some part to play in this because why else will I pull this card next?
Yeah. No, that makes sense. But yeah, it is definitely very much the somebody can be there supporting you, but you're going to be the one doing the work. You have to put in the effort. It's not a lot of people, this is like you and I talked about this a little bit last time, I think. Like a lot of people want magic or tarot or occult stuff to be like, oh, it's the easy way out. Here's your potion. Ta da. And that's just not how it is. It's you have to put in that work. It just gives you
Exactly.
like the recipe for how you need to do it.
Exactly. It's definitely so, and that's the thing I think people think when they look at tarot cards, they think it's that. Again, Hollywood has basically taken tarot cards and made us think that, ooh, it's
Don't get me
magical like
started.
this. It's not so much as magical as, like I said, they tell a story. Each card has a meaning, and you have to figure out what that meaning is in
Mhm.
relation to the querent and
Mhm.
try to tell that story to where it's supposed to go, which is why the Celtic Cross is kind of, it's a good intricate storyteller so you
It's
can
very
explain to
good.
this person.
Yeah.
It's just that it's like you said, if you've had the Celtic Cross done to you so many times, and every time it's like, how can we
Yeah.
not hit my feelings today? Um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's interesting to go through all of this or to do all of this, and people are like, well, it's the devil's handiwork, and I was like, no, this isn't
Yeah.
the devil's
Gosh.
handiwork. It's literally, and this is what I tell people, is like, when you look at a tarot card has a specific meaning, and you
Mhm.
just have to know what that meaning means in relation to the question. If you don't know the question, you follow your instinct as to what you think the querent would be asking and hope for the
Mhm.
best.
Yeah. Which is really why you need like a solid question. Like for me, especially if I do a reading for somebody that I don't have a connection to or I don't have any understanding of them as a person, and they're just like, "Oh, I just want a general reading." I'm like, "Okay, well, that general reading could be about how you felt on Friday or what you
Right.
wanted for breakfast next week." So it's like we need like a question or something to help ground where that's going from. And a lot of people are like, "Oh, well, you're just trying to make it so that, what was it? Like the stereotype of like tarot readers being frauds and they just like look up people on Facebook and play into their fears type thing."
I'm just saying, we aren't Miss Cleo. I didn't know you were
Yeah.
calling that. Okay.
Yeah. No.
So, and I think, and again, there's a lot of stigma with some people who think that it's a charlatan's game, and it's not a charlatan game. It's really you study the card, you have the question from a querent who just walked in your
Mhm.
room, and you're doing your best with the question you were given to figure out, how can I help? Well, it depends
Yeah.
on the person. Some people are like, how can I help this person? Other people are like, how can I get $20 out of this person while also giving them the advice that they probably don't realize they actually need? Um,
Yeah. I will say, like, if you get a good tarot reader, it's somebody who cares and they're like, okay, I want to help you. If you get somebody who's just in it to try and make money, a lot of the time that's where you come into the people who don't know as much how to help
right.
and how to interpret to give that advice.
Right. Because again, talking about my friend, he asked me a question dealing with communication with some people. And, they were trying to decide, should they cut people off? And I pulled the Three of Swords. And I remembered this one because I always remember this one, just in general, because I've pulled the Three of Swords for many people many times.
Mhm.
There used to be a little rhyme that came with, there's the book that I had, the cards had like a rhyming theme for each card. So it was heartbreak unless you can communicate. And that kind of, and I always remember that, like, if you don't learn how to communicate with these people, you're going to get hurt or someone's going to get hurt. And it's probably going to be you. So you need to learn how to communicate with them and make it work if you want a relationship with these people.
That makes a lot of sense.
Right. And
For
so
sure.
that's why I'm just kind of like, this is what you kind of have to do. It's again, a lot of this stuff, it's best way to put it, it's advisory. It's
Yeah.
advice. It's like, this is advice, take it as you will. If you follow it,
Mhm.
this may happen. If you don't follow it, well, what you want to happen may not happen. Don't
Mhm.
come to me in 20 minutes telling me, or in a month, saying I followed everything the card said and it didn't happen. This is the best possible outcome if you follow this advice.
Yeah. Well, also, it's not necessarily like I said it was like a recipe before, and it's not necessarily like a recipe because when you have a cake recipe, say, you know it's going to take 25 minutes to prep and then it'll take 30 minutes to bake, and there's your cake.
Right.
This isn't like that in that I did this, I smudged it all down into, bleep, smooshed it, I did it all in 1 week, where's my result?
Right.
That's not necessarily how it works. You have to
And
be like dedicated and put the work in. And it doesn't matter if you finish that work in 1 week or if you finish that work in 2 years.
right. And that's, I think, a good way to put it, instead of like saying a cake and like smushing it all
Yeah.
together quickly. It's like making a clock.
Yes.
many intricate pieces that have to be put in just the right way for it to work
Hmm.
right and tick.
I think that's a perfect analogy.
That is like the part, talk about, telling the future and using a clock. That just makes so much sense. Um, so yeah, I think that's what people, and I think that's the biggest thing you should take from a lot of this is that it's advice. It's someone who's
Hmm.
intuitive enough, who is like, I hear what your problem is, understanding what this meanings of this card is. This is the advice that the cards are giving you right now.
Hmm.
However, sometimes they could be dead wrong just because who knows? Psychic interference. The
Yeah.
tinfoil hat was not on properly that day. Who knows?
Well, the other thing is if you ask someone who is too close to a situation to do a reading for you on it, or if you are trying to do a reading for yourself on something where you are like really volatile or you're super connected to it, it just doesn't work because your concern or their emotional attachment messes with how you're reading, how you do it, because you're so connected to that outcome. So sometimes you have to go to someone else or you have to find somebody not as connected and give
Right.
them just enough information so that you can get an unbiased reading.
And me and you have done that to each other.
Yep, a couple times.
Yeah.
And it always helps out. Like, it is so much more clear to have somebody who is not in the middle of that situation look at it and be like, all right, so this is what I'm reading. And then you can be like, okay, yep, that makes complete sense because blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
And
Yep.
then there might be something else that pops out.
Yep.
But
So
yeah.
now that we've talked about spreads, I think the last thing that we need to talk about is, because we've already brought it up once, is the
Hmm.
major and minor arcana. So
Hmm.
remember, the tarot deck is like what, 72 cards total?
I think so, yeah.
I think that sounds about like the
72
right
or
number.
76. It's in. I've seen some that are 70. I've seen some that are closer to 80 because some people, when they make their own deck, they add to the major arcana or they take away from it. So
Got you. So
anywhere
it
from
really
70 to 80.
got you. So it just depends on the deck that you use. And each card, again, like we said, has specific meaning. Now, with that
Mhm.
being said, Major Arcana is made up of like 20 plus cards. So we're
It's
not going to take
usually
the
like
time.
20, yeah.
We're not going to go over every single one in
A
this
lot.
podcast. Go ahead and tell you that now. If you want to learn how to do this, there is plenty of books out there and plenty of
Hmm.
tarot decks out there that you can pick up and actually learn how to do this. And that's what I recommend if you want to learn a lot of this. So with the major and minors, we're just kind of going to go over some of the highlights of what these cards
Hmm.
represent and what you should kind of look for when you're using it and kind of get an understanding of what it means when it pops up. So
Okay.
with that being said, Raven, I believe you are taking care of the major arcana.
Yes. And also, like, we can totally, if people are interested, we could look at doing an episode that deep dives into these, like, later on.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. But essentially, I'm just gonna like do an overview. So the major arcana, if you have a major arcana show up in a reading, it's usually like this is a really key part of the reading. It's an important, like, pay attention to this type thing. That being said, if you have several of them showing up in a reading like you did for your friend, that can mean, in my experience, that this is a really big pivotal event for them. Like,
Mm-hmm.
the reading is discussing something that's major. Usually, for me, if I have a lot of them, it's showing like either it's the situation itself, an individual, or an event that is going to have that major effect or become a significant player. So, if you have a major arcana, just like pay really close attention. Like, look at that and then look at how it fits in with everything else you're seeing in that reading. That being said, there are three cards that I think we need to discuss.
Okay. Let's go for it. Let's
So,
discuss it.
yes. The first one is actually going to be the death card. And Hollywood has kind of bastardized this card, and like it might also be like a societal fear of death that everybody's like, oh my gosh, watch out for the death card. It's so horrible. It's gonna. Da, da, da. No. All the death card means is a transformation or a transition. Now, it might be a really big transformation or transition, but is just that. It's not, oh my gosh, you're gonna die. It could be like a new job, a new home, that you're gonna move, something like that. But it's just a transitional point in your life. That's it. It's not scary, I promise. The next one is the devil card. Everybody freaks out when they see this one. They think, oh my gosh, this is the devil coming for you. Oh my gosh, no, 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 no. Take a breath, it's okay. It's not the Christian devil in that sense. It is a representative of a negative influence, a bad habit, a kind of blockage. So it could be representing a super negative friend, it could be representing procrastination, something like that. It's a blockage in your way of getting to what you want or need in this situation. And then the last card, I'm sure you know which one it is. It's the tower.
Oh God,
This
yes.
is the one. That's the one that you need to fear. That's the one where when it comes up in your reading, it means your life is about to get picked up like a snow globe, flipped upside down, and shook all around. Everything's going to change. There's going to be major, like, it could be a devastation. It could be like you're no longer in the field you thought you were in for your work and you don't know where you're going. It's something major, and it's when you're going to get all like shook up. Stuff's happening. That's the one when it shows up. That's the one to fear. That's my interpretation. But yeah, and my other note about Major Arcana was yes, depending on what deck you're using, they have changed the names of some of the Major Arcana. So if you do start out using like the what is it, the Rider Waite tarot deck, that's like
Mm-hmm.
the standard one, and then you switch over to a different tarot deck, some of them have different names for the same card. So the Empress might become the Popess or something like that, but it is the same card, it's just a different name. Yeah. And I think that is just about everything I had for the Major Arcana. Foxfire, do you have any additional comments on those?
I think I do agree with you that when you start seeing a lot of major arcana in your field is a good way to put
Mm-hmm.
it. You should be expecting some big life changes, or not
Yeah.
life changes, but you should be. This is very important. There's a reason why it's called major arcana
Yeah.
because it's major. It's something kind of big. These cards don't have a lot of multiple meaning. They're typically direct.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I remember years ago watching The Simpsons, where it goes back to how Hollywood tries to bastardize some of these cards, where
Mm-hmm.
the fortune teller pulled out death, and Lisa was like, "Oh my God, I'm going to die," and she's like, "Oh no, this is just new beginnings. That's all it is." But then she pulls out the next card, and it's the fluffy bunny, which is not one of the cards. And then the oracle is like freaking out over this
Yeah.
because it's like horrible to have this such a cute card. So yeah, the major arcana is there because it's the major player on the field, and you should kind of pay attention to it about how you should change it. And I do agree with you about the devil. That
Mm-hmm.
one it's like you said. That one is typically in a reading I did a while back. It was someone who was a very negative influence,
Mm-hmm.
and it was someone who was it's not the devil itself, but it's the aspects of the devil, which is trickery,
Yeah.
using sweet words to get what they want and to make you think it's honestly it's a card of manipulation. Someone is manipulating you into doing something that you think you want to do, but it's really not what you want.
That's a really good way of looking at it.
Right. It's like honestly hearing all the sweet words that you want to hear, but not realizing that what this person is doing is actually hurting you ultimately, or could
Yeah.
lead to hurting you ultimately. Tower, I will not forget the first time I ever looked at the meaning of the tower, because I thought, new deck. I was thinking, oh God, death is a terrible card. And I was like, no, this is just cyclical. That's all it is. But seeing that the tower, because anytime you look at the tower, it's always the Tower of Babel or some version of the Tower of Babel
Mm-hmm.
that's being destroyed, which should tell you that life is being changed. Now,
Yeah.
depending on if it's upright or reversed, depends on if it's a good change or a bad change, or if it's something that needs to be changed, I guess is a good way to put it.
I would say you're right. The major arcana, they have their meanings, they're very set, and when it's reversed, it's actually a lot easier to read the major arcana reversed because it is so just there. It's like the upright meaning is this, the reverse meaning is literally just the opposite.
The opposite of what it is.
Hmm.
So you just kind of run with it. And they're kind of nice to see sometimes. In there, especially if there's like one card that typically follows a little bit. I think you did reading for me one time. You said the Empress was following, and it was funny. Or
Yeah.
it follows all your readings, but it always pops up. Something
Yes.
interesting about the Empress that I remember from years ago watching Miss Cleo, by the way, is typically the Empress is a representation of pregnancy for a woman.
Yeah, it's pregnancy, motherhood, fertility. Essentially, it is the pinnacle of feminine energy, just like the emperor is the pinnacle of masculine
Masculine.
energy.
And then you have the Hierophant, which is your pinnacle of religious energy,
Hmm.
or like divine energy, I guess is a better way to put it.
Yeah. Divine
Um,
energy, and then because what is it, the high priestess is usually what people say is the pinnacle of magical,
right.
like
And
occult.
then and so it's like as you go into each of these cards, you realize that each of them have this strong meaning and what they're supposed to represent.
Hmm.
So yeah, Major Arcana is it's like you said, it's like Kate, it's like mwah, chef kiss. It is easy to read because
I
once
love
you
it.
know one way, you know what it means the other way.
Hmm. It's not like the minor arcana, which it's like, well,
Right? It's
maybe
like, well, maybe. All right. So, with that being said, I'm jumping into the minor arcana then
go
because
for it.
this was fun to do the research on. So, the first thing to start with is with the minor arcana, there are 56 cards total. Typically, these cards are the more intricate details of what's going into your tarot readings and your everyday life. So, while the major arcana is this big thing that has this huge statement, this is kind of how this where the statement's coming from when you work with these cards. There are 4 suits in total. Depending on the deck you use, depends on what the suit would be called. I know with my dragon deck, some of the suit names are changed versus what they're actually called in other decks. The 4 suits are going to be the sword, the wand, or the rods, depending on the deck, cups, and then lastly being the pentacles or coins. Again, these names are typically going to just depend on the cards you bought and that you bought from the store. I was about to say grocery store. You can't buy tarot cards at a grocery store. Visit your local
If
metaphysical
you
shop to
could,
find the deck that you
I
want,
would
please.
be. If you could, I would be in so much danger. I could never go to the grocery store again.
Oh my god, you couldn't go by yourself. And so if you look at the each of the 56 cards, what you're going to notice is that they kind of line up almost like a regular deck of cards. You have ace to king. Only difference is that there's a new so you have ace 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yes, 10. And then it jumps to page, knight, queen, and king. So the only difference is you've added one extra card into your major arcana or into your minor arcana from a regular card deck. I know people who have said that they can do a tarot reading using just playing cards. I applaud you to those people who can do that because that's not something I want to learn to do at all. So I want to go over first what each of the different suits kind of represent. So first one, of course, is the sword. I've kind of discussed the sword a little bit already. They are typically air based, and you have to keep in mind that air is typically a lot of your mental working when you're actually doing this kind of stuff. It's basically it's double edged because your mind can either work for you or against you in these situations. So it also represents the winter season when you're doing a reading. So let's say you're trying to figure something out for a time of year that something may occur. It could be in the winter. It could be that's what air typically means is winter. These are cards that are for a time of reflection, introspection, potential conflict. And typically, again, like I said, this is a challenging suit because it's saying if you don't change things, you're going to get cut, and not in the nice way. It's going to hurt. Someone will be hurt and cut. So typically, when I see a lot of swords in the deck, I know that means that this person has a lot coming to them or getting ready to be laid on them that they're going to have to deal with.
Mm.
It's a lot of self, like again, it's a lot of self-reflection that has to be done within the swords. Then the next one is the wand or the rod. These are your fire based. The spring is a season that they kind of represent. So typically these are very bold, ambitious, driven, competitive, and initiative driven cards. So it's urging you to do something. However, I believe it's the Eight of Wands. It's wands, rods, or staves. It really depends on which deck you buy. Um,
Mhm.
Eventually, it does show that you're coming under burden from having too much put onto you. So it's just you. So typically, it's just you're doing a lot and it's a great thing, but eventually you have to realize when too much is enough. Of course, next is cups. This is your water based. It's the summer season. This while the air is a lot of your intuition, not intuition, excuse me, is a lot of that internal mental work. Your
Mhm.
cups are typically your emotionals cards, like how your emotions are feeling, how they should be driven. It's cup. The cup is a water sign, of course, so that means supposed to be kind of healing a little bit. But again, that's kind of what you have to look forward to when working with cups. And then last is the pentacles or coins. These are earth based. This is for the fall. And this is about the physical body itself. This is kind of like telling you our physical body and physical items that exist in the world, because again, coin slash pinnacle, you pay for things with these are supposed to be ways of payment. It typically shows that you have some kind of wealth of some sort as you're working with it, or a drive towards wealth. So that's the four different suits and kind of how they're all spread out amongst. You have your elements and your seasons, and so it's like if you're trying to figure out when you're gonna get pregnant, it's like you pull the Empress and the Earth and one of the pinnacles or coins, and you look down. It's like, oh well, if you're trying to get pregnant, it's going to happen. Just wait till the fall.
Mhm.
I mean, of course, you can't just sit there and not do your part to get pregnant, but you've got to do the work to get there, of course.
Yeah.
But it's like it kind of gives you an idea because fall is very broad. That's 3 months, so out of the year. So basically, 1 through 10 is exactly what it sounds like. The numbers go up and things change a little bit. But then you have the four face cards, as I like to call them. So, first is the
Mhm.
page. So you have to think of the page, the knight, the queen, and the king kind of back in the old Victorian time. Not Victorian, even further back than that. King Arthur times. Let's go for it. Knights and all that fun stuff. So the page was typically the young squire. He was trying to get ready. He wanted to be a knight. He was, he's a fresh faced, energetic, new start. And so that's basically what the page represents. Is typically a new beginning, a fresh start, or a messenger bringing some kind of opportunity. So if it was a page of swords, it could be an opportunity that's going to cause some mental strife, or you need to do some mental work on it. So that's kind of interesting, because then you get into the knight. The knight is typically a youthful, energetic, action oriented figure. It signifies movement, progress, and drives to act in a goal. This often shows when a situation requires bold steps and confidence, because as a knight, you've done all this work to become strong and powerful. So you're this aggressive fighter. You're a protector at this point. So that is your point, is you're here to protect and you're trying to make things progress to the next level. Um, Queens, they're powerful, nurturing, and expressive feminine energy. They signify leadership, reaching potential, mastery with a specific area of life, depending on the suit they belong to. So, let's say you have the Queen of Cups, that typically means you have control over your emotions. Now, if you got the Queen of Cups reversed, that probably means you don't have that much control over your emotions or a specific emotion that may be discussed in that reading. So yeah, queens typically, it's the nurturing, it's the emotional control side of things. And then lastly is the king. These are typically mature, established figures with full control over their emotions and actions. They're well-developed personality, capable of leadership, stability, and providing guidance within their respective suit. So again, like I said, each face card, it has a generic idea of what it should be, but then when you add in the element or into the suit itself, it changes the meaning slightly to kind of match what the suit is. I had one book a long time ago that actually gave age ranges for all of these different things, to tell you like what kind of age range this person is that'll be influenced in your life. That was kind of cool to see. I never really got that deep into doing my own tarot stuff, but with the minor arcana, it's like each card will have 2 or 3 meanings, and you have to divine, or you have to use your intuition to figure out for the question which which of these meanings best answers the situation. I think Six of Cups on my dragon deck is actually travel because it has a picture of a boat, and that's actually really interesting to see. And there's also one, I think the Nine of Cups is called the Wish card because you can make a wish on that card if it's drawn into your reading. So yeah, and I will say with my dragon deck that I do have, in the corners it actually shows you the alchemic symbols, if I just butchered the heck out that word, of the different elements, so you know what element is associated with that card.
Okay, that's really cool. That's useful.
And then on the major and minor arcana, it will show the zodiac sign or any other symbol that could potentially be related to that card. Like if there's a planet that's related to it. So of course, when I pull Justice, the first thing I see is the Libra symbol. Or if I pull the Devil, I believe that's Capricorn. The Hermit is Virgo. The Hierophant is Taurus. Um, it's interesting to see some of that stuff pop up. I think the Magician still has the infinity symbol because it's supposed to be like
All of them.
all power and everything,
Yeah.
like infinite power. So there's quite a lot to look at when you deal with these cards.
Yeah. And that's where like tarot can get really like overwhelming in the minor arcana.
Right. Because once you
Yeah.
get into the minor arcana, that's where you're going to start having to figure out how does this card work into the question that you're given. So that's basically everything about the minor and major arcana and kind of tarot in general. So, with the last couple minutes, what we kind of want to touch base on is some of the other divining methods that you can use. Rune stones are a really good one. I am afraid of using rune stones some days. Um, True story. I had a friend of mine. I had a bag of rune stones, and I used to not keep the bag knotted. The bag fell, and one rune fell out, and I don't remember which rune it is now, but I remember what it is back then. I looked at it, shrugged my shoulders, and threw it back in the bag, and tied it and put it back on my counter or in my desk. And then a couple weeks later, a friend of mine passed away. That was very not expected for me. It rocked my world slightly. And when that happened, I actually went back because I remembered I had seen Runestone fall out a couple weeks before her passing. I looked at it, and the runestone actually represented a great loss. And so when that happened, I triple knotted that bag and I have hidden it. And I hid it, and I have not touched them since. They were hematite, so they were beautiful, like black and glossy with
Oh,
nice
wow.
gold rune letters. I still have the bag. I have taken them out and used them a couple of times. I think being that Freya is my patroness, anything that comes from that more than likely is something that I need to listen to and follow,
Yeah.
which is why they stay hidden in a way.
I feel like I can only handle the tarot readings. I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah, I don't want to do that anymore. But yeah, runestones, pendulum work. Pendulum work can be used for a lot of different things. It can be used for
Hmm.
dowsing, divining. It can also be used for energy work to figure out how your
Hmm.
chakra points are actually moving and if anything is stagnant or unstable.
Yeah.
Um,
I will say
I,
pendulums can be a little difficult for just beginning to use them because you really have to be careful that you are not moving at all, or you can affect like how it's moving.
right. And if I feel like I'm using a pendulum and or I have my pendulum, I actually keep it in my pocket now and I carry it with me. It's kind of like my security blanket now, which is really weird. So every now and again, I'll whip it out my pocket and be like, "All right, I got to ask a question." I will ask the same question about 3 or 4 times
Hmm.
and in different ways, just to make sure that it's not me moving it and that the pendulum is actually being guided like it's supposed to be. Um,
Yeah.
Depending on the person you talk to, some people say it's the rotation of the earth, some people say it's a subconscious twitch. Either way, if that's the case, that's fine because a subconscious twitch means that you're connected to something that's
Hmm.
guiding it.
Yeah.
So,
And you also have to be really careful when you're using a pendulum that you're asking yes or no answer questions. Like don't do this or that. What if? No, it's yes or no. If you have a or question or a what if question, you need your tarot deck.
yep, yep. I think I've mentioned I Ching before. It's basically
Hmm.
you throw coins And when you throw the coins, depending on how they land, depends on where the line goes into this design. I can't remember what it's called now. I think it's a hexagram. And basically, there's a book, and you read it, and it's like however the line design is basically what that future's supposed to be. I've used oracle sticks, which is basically you take a handful of these sticks that have red on one end and no color on the other end, and you toss them, and however many of a certain way that is done or how it lays is your answer. And I'm like, nope. Never again. That gets a little bit more into the Oriental side of things with the I Ching and the Oracle sticks. I'm trying to think of some other divining methods. Prophetic
Um,
dreams, I kind of feel do exist.
yeah.
When I have had them, they're typically strong emotions, a strong emotional dream, and it's something that I can't remember. I just remember what that emotion specifically was. Now, if I had like a bad dream, like a nightmare, I typically ignore it. But that's where I feel like sometimes my sense of deja vu comes from is when it just randomly hits me. I'm like, oh, this has happened before, or I've seen this before, which means I must be on the right track of what I'm supposed to be doing.
Dude, when I was younger, I did not pay attention to those. My grandfather had dreams like that. My mom has, my sister has. I just wouldn't pay attention. I'm just like, oh, it's a dream. And then it would just like keep happening, like a bad situation that I dreamed about. And I would do the thing, and the bad result would happen. And so I finally started like dream journaling a couple years back.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's just helped me like remember the dream a little bit better so that when I start getting like that emotional feeling or the weird deja vu thing, I'm like, wait a minute, I remember this. I had this dream. If I say this, that person's gonna like fly off the handle. And it has helped me in so many situations completely avoid something that I dreamed
Yeah,
like 3 years ago.
I tried, and like I said, I it depends. It's like I said, it depends on the dream. If there feels like there's high emotion when I wake up, honestly, if I wake up with like an anxiety attack, then I know that that was not a normal dream. It was
Hmm.
one of my prophetic dreams because there's a sense of urgency behind it, like something's getting
Yeah.
ready to occur. And typically, that's when I actually go through my friend lists. I'm like, "Are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay?" And just like ask everybody if they're fine.
Hmm.
And there's also, I mean, there's other methods that are out there. I'm sure, like we've discussed Oracle cards.
Hmm.
Um, like there's so many
Bone
different ways.
casting.
Which one?
You do bone casting. I saw someone who did them with shells. That was
Oh
kind of
wow,
cool.
yeah, and like there's a whole bunch of different ways to do a lot of this stuff to kind of get it to see where stuff is going.
Hmm.
Um, it's once you find one that works for you, it becomes habit to work
Yeah.
with. Um, and it's kind of nice. Now, one I haven't learned how to do is how to actually do crystal ball reading. I don't think it works kind of like how Hollywood wants it to put. I believe you actually have to go into a state to do that,
Yeah.
especially as you're looking, because I'm one of those people where I believe if you look at that, you shouldn't be looking into something that's perfect. It should be flawed.
Hmm.
Because if it's flawed, then you can focus on that one flaw and start to kind of let your mind go and let it search for things. There's smoke reading, which I've never done.
Mirror scrying.
Yep, mirror scrying, tea
Hmm.
leaf reading.
Hmm.
Like I said, there's tons of way to do divination, and each one has its own little way to do it. Palm reading. Um,
Hmm.
I have a book on palm reading. I've looked at it, and I kind of went, no, this is not for me because this is more stressful than anything else.
I feel like that's like the most important thing when you're looking at like all these different ways to do divination is when you're building your practice and you're finding what fits best for you, that's really what it is when you find like the divination method that works for you and makes you feel the most connected and comfortable, that's just how you do it.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of different divination tools out there. You just have to find the one that works for you. Like I know for tea leaf reading, they actually have cups where the inside of it show you where if the tea leaves are on a certain spot, this is what it means with that shape and everything. So it's kind of cool for like training and stuff. But it's again, it's a lot of work. You kind of have to put the effort into it if you, especially if you want to make it lucrative. Um,
Yeah.
So just always keep that in mind. But that is basically all that I have about divination and talking about tarot cards. What do you have anything else, Raven, that you want to bring up?
No, I think we've done like a pretty good job of covering everything.
I know tarot cards are pretty interesting to start working with. Um,
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to getting your first tarot deck, I've heard two different things. One is
Mm.
that you should never buy your first tarot deck; it should be given to you as a gift. And then, because if it's not given to you as a gift, then it's something weird, it's taboo. But
Mm.
if someone gives me the gift of money, that means I use that money to buy what I want.
Hey, I'll take that.
So
That that
it's like
that
I'm like,
counts.
there's a loophole. So
Take that counts.
right. So just keep in mind, like, if you want a tarot deck, you can buy your own. It shouldn't be a problem for your first deck. It's just
Mhm.
some people see it as taboo from old tradition. But now, since they're mass produced and they're not hard to come by, really, you can honestly just have your own deck to kind of work with, like from wherever you can find it.
Yeah. Well, maybe that was like the old tradition. It could have been like, oh, well, if you're getting it from a secondhand shop, it could be cursed or this or that or the other. But nowadays, if you go into like an occult store and you buy it there, I'm pretty sure you're safe.
Yeah, they're wrapped in plastic still.
Literally.
Or then like if family members are handing you, or like maybe like used to be hand me down decks,
Mm,
like with a lot of the tradition for
yeah,
some of the stuff is like you would hand it down to the next generation to use, so that you would be like, don't buy a deck, you should be gifted your first deck from somebody, so
in
it
the
kind of
family.
makes
That would
sense
make
where some of
sense.
that
Yeah,
comes from. So
that would make a lot of sense.
yeah. So yeah, just if you're ready for your first deck, go run out there, go buy your first deck. It typically comes with everything that you need. Comes with a
Hmm.
little booklet to explain how the cards should be read and how the different design and how you do different spreads. Um,
Hmm.
and kind of just get out there, get started on it. Like learn what
Go
the cards mean.
experiment.
Like enjoy it and when you actually get good at it, like surprise your friends when you pull them out at a Halloween party and be like, here, let's do tarot readings for you. Um,
Yeah,
so don't, yeah. So never be afraid to jump into something and try something new to see if it actually works for you.
yeah. Like, do your research, like, get to know, like, okay, well, I want this kind of deck that's based off the Rider Waite, or I want, what's that other one, the Lil something? It's like slightly different, but it's essentially the same thing. There's like different deck bases. I don't know. But like, go enjoy, go have fun. Pick something
Right.
that makes you feel connected.
Yep. Yep. Find one that makes you feel connected and that you feel is the best one for you specifically.
You might even surprise yourself. Like I thought I was gonna do like the Wildwood Tarot, like the one you have.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it's like the Crow deck and the I think it's called the Hush Tarot.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they're really good. They're really beautifully done.
So I'm done. And if you're done, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between, we appreciate you listening to us tonight, or today, or whenever you're listening to us. And we hope that you come back and join us at the hearth again. I believe we covered a lot and have a lot of good information for you all out there who are listening to us. So, with
Yeah.
that being said, Raven, is there anything you want to say before you do the closing prayer?
No, I think our next episode is on ritual spaces, right?
Yep, Ritual Spaces is next,
Yeah.
and that's going to be interesting to kind of help people understand what items are needed to just your
Mm-hmm.
basics to get it started for a ritual space of what you may want or need, and then
Yeah.
how to consecrate and like prepare the
Mm-hmm.
area and stuff like that. So it should be a good conversation. All right, Raven, you got it.
All right, Morgan, Phantom Queen, goddess of magic, prophecy, and death, she of otherworldly power and knowledge, thank you for your guidance today. Be it your will, we part in peace and prosperity. So mote it be.
So mote it be.
Thanks for tuning in. If you have any questions, comments, or topic suggestions, feel free to reach out through the link in the description below. We'd love to hear from you. Blessed be and walk in light.